It's the year 1886 in the Cayman Islands. A population of only 1,000 people. The island's only industry is the sea. It's in this year, on November 16th, that Cayman's most prolific songwriter was born, Leela McTaggart.
Our legend, our genius, our writer.
This great teacher, this great author, she was an innovator and was ahead of her time.
She was a prolific songwriter.
And boy, could she play that guitar. And could she sing.
Leela's father, William, was a Christian minister born in Cayman in 1863 and was of Scottish Jamaican descent. His childhood sweetheart was Emily Ann, who would become his wife and the mother of Leela. Taken from her diary, Leela says about her father.
He had a fine voice and loved to sing by note. He had a violin which he played when the family gathered in the parlor to enjoy the evening together.
Leela says about her mother.
She was so faithful, self-sacrificing, tender and loving, so versatile and charming.
Leela says about herself.
The little girl was christened and brought up in the nurture of the Lord Jesus Christ, and from her earliest infancy loved her Savior and gave her heart to him.
She was bright, creative, and multi-talented.
She was very, very artistic, and she just looked the part.
She played the accordion, the harmonica, the piano, the organ, the ukulele, the guitar, and the mandolin.
She composed all her songs on her own, and she superseded all her elders.
She never hesitated to pour out her soul in song. She kept up her studies and practiced.
She wanted to be a songwriter. She wanted to be a poet.
Leela was full of expression, and her family encouraged her interest in music. She was always writing, composing, and singing. In 1914, Leela met Bentley Ross, a native of Honduras. 6 weeks later, they were married.
I think he talked Spanish and worked with the boats as supercargo. And
I think he was a seaman or a merchant marine,
and he traded between Honduras, Cayman, and Cuba.
Before long, Leela and her husband moved to Honduras.
After 7 months, she returned to Cayman. On November the 12th, her baby girl was born, a beautiful child who everyone loved and admired.
A few years later, Leela had another child, this time a boy. It's said that it was during this time period that she wrote the classic song, Beloved Isle Cayman.
It was in 1932, before the hurricane hit Cayman, that she wrote the Cayman national song, Beloved Isle Cayman. Bentley was very proud of it and had it copyrighted in Washington. They were simply glad of its popularity and sent it to various radio stations where it was put on their programs. Copies were sent to the schools and the children were taught to sing it.
A hauntingly beautiful song, it would one day become the national song of the Cayman Islands.
With thy Creator's glory reflected everywhere.
And this one is a most beautiful anthem. I think it's the most beautiful one I've ever heard, quite frankly.
Merging to darkest blue.
The words and music tell us a lot about Miss Leela's persona, with her Creator's glory reflected everywhere. In other words, she saw God in everything when she looked around the island. The breezes, the ocean, the birds, everything. She saw God in them.
You read her poems and all you can see is her view of things as being beautiful.
Yeah.
That song captured the essence of who we are as a people. It's home. That's what it all boils down to.
Five years later, in 1937, Leela's husband, Bentley Ross, traveled to Cuba for business. On the night of Christmas Eve, Bentley was tragically killed in a car accident. Only 39 years old and a mother of two, Leela was now a widow.
And the heavy clouds of grief enveloped Leela, and it seemed she would go under. God in his wonderful love sent her a dream or a vision in the early hours one morning. She thought that she stepped into the old home and called out, "Who was it who rung the bell and said, 'Be happy'?" And one robed in silvery whiteness took her and folded her to his bosom and said, "'Tis Jesus, 'tis Jesus." She awoke and put her house in order, and from that day determined to make home happy and comfortable for her children.
Leela moved back permanently to the Cayman Islands. She settled back into Georgetown and got involved in the community.
I lived in town there, and I went to work in with a lady, Leela Ross. I worked with her in the kitchen.
A multi-talented woman, she eventually became the head librarian of the Georgetown Library. In a time when education was not valued and young men were expected to go to sea and send money home, Leela freely shared knowledge with those around her.
Reading was my thing. And of course, that didn't go down well. And so I took refuge in the library. And that is when I met Miss Leela Ross. Remember, Cayman was a segregated society. And for a white woman, taking interest in a colored boy from Mayor Street was extraordinary.
Well, I first met Miss Leela when I was 12 years old. I came to Georgetown to go to Cayman High School. And she came and she looked out of the window. And I always remember the expression on her face. And she looked out of the window and she says, "Hey, dearie, you're new? This is the library." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she says, "You see all of these books here?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She says, "I can lend them to you and you can read them all."
Every time we went to the library,
she gave private music lessons.
You play the guitar as well? Miss Leela Ross was teaching me to pick the guitar. She used to play so much.
And she was always at her plays at school. You know, she was a very supportive person and very involved in the community.
She had the kindest, sweetest smile.
I always remember her like a twinkle in her eyes.
This is how she always spoke. She said, "Son, you have a good mind, you know." She said, "You ought to try to develop that."
She was a friendly person. And she was real. She wasn't make-believe.
Her presence was felt in the community because she was involved in pretty much every aspect of our lives. She was a big person.
I'm lonesome and unhappy, for mosquitoes make me sore.
For everyone I kill, I find a million more.
If you were here beside me, I don't think I should care.
For you could kill mosquitoes and still caress me there. Oh, sure, I get a little love note in there, boy.
Over the years, Leela established herself as a well-known and prominent woman in Georgetown.
women did not get the right to vote until 1959, but they did not vote until 1962. And in 1959, Leela was one of those persons who signed this. This is her name, Leela E. Shire. After this push, they removed the Sex Disqualification Act. Miss Leela was not just a writer. She was part of the political process.
But despite being involved in various community activities, Her main love was always music.
She was always in demand as an entertainer.
People must forget that. She was the one producing the concerts in those days.
People would come and they would play and sing, or they would recite poetry or whatever, and she always used her own.
She wrote on every minutiae of things in the Cayman Islands.
That she wrote topical songs. If there's any special functions in the town hall, she would write a song about that.
A dedicated Christian, Leila was a member of the Presbyterian Church her whole life.
She was also the choir leader in the Presbyterian Church, or the Elms Memorial Church as you know it now, and was very involved in the life of the church.
She was an organist, Sunday school teacher.
I remember Leila singing in the choir. When she wasn't pounding on the organ, she was up there singing.
Really, her whole life was around church.
She never missed church. Always dressed up with her jewelry and her lipstick, and always beautiful. She had beautiful curly hair.
Time went on, and Leila got older. During this late period in her life, she would find love again.
When Samuel Shire, a Canadian who also had lost his dear partner and was lonely as she, met her, it seemed as if it was ordained so, and they were married.
That's how he used to laugh.
Carried a cane, a black cane, bushy mustache.
You remember it was just after the war of all those calamities. So she was able to sit quietly in the library here.
I came as a visitor.
And that's how he met her. I guess he spent a lot of time visiting with her.
And he hooked it up with our Leila boy.
Loving to bloom.
Her dear husband claimed that she made life sweet, musical, peaceful, and happy by her companionship and devotion.
He certainly did really well for grandmother. She dearly loved him. They seem to have had a fantastic marriage.
Oh yeah, they had a good life together. And they loved each other.
And of course, when she married Mr. Shire, he took her on trips, took her up to Canada.
I traveled a lot, and she always wanted to come back to Cayman.
Then, tragedy would strike again. Mr. Shire would die while going for his evening swim.
His last words to me, "I am going for a swim in Coral Bay. I'll be back soon, dear." He was brought back at 9:30 in his coffin, and all my soul was torn within me, gone without a goodbye in the best of health. But though from out the bourne of time and space the floods may bear me far, I hope to see my pilot face to face when I have crossed the bar.
Now widowed twice and in the twilight of her life, Leila moved to her son Benny's house on the ocean on North Church Street.
I remember when we were school children and went to always pass the house every day. A lot of times she was playing a guitar, or she would be tuning up and composing, looking out over the water.
In 1968, Leila's health began to decline rapidly.
As the days went by, she got weaker. She didn't write too much after that.
Leila's footsteps are growing feeble, once so fearless and bold. As she feels the shadow of the evening of her life lengthening, she wonders, has the world been any sweeter for anyone through her life?
I guess they didn't realize she was so low in health at the time. And I was just holding her hand, and she started to breathe real deeply, and I thought, oh, something is happening to her. I said, she's dead. She's dead, Robert.
I heard the voice of Jesus say, why wait for weary years? Come now to me, my child, and I will always calm your fears. I came to Jesus in my glad and happy, glorious youth. I found in him a lasting joy, a well of life and truth.
Leela died on September 26, 1968. Throughout the course of her life, she wrote hundreds of songs, many of which are still sung by Caymanians today.
Miss Leela was really a child of God and who loved the things of God and who was interested in her community and all the things that really matter in life.
She was a gentle old soul.
That smile. I always remember her smile.
I don't think I ever saw her that she didn't smile and have something nice to say.
She was just a lovely, lovely person.
She was the first inspiration for learning and for truth. She's one of the greatest Caymanian women.
I would say she was one of the most genuinely pure Christian ladies that was really a genius and probably one of the most humble people I've ever known.
Our hero, our phenomenal woman.
Leela's contribution to our society was far-reaching and was primarily channeled through her music. Music was her life, and it was through music that she imparted herself and shared the beauty of Cayman to the world. In 2016, Leela's granddaughter Lisa arranged for a symphony orchestra to perform and record Leela's classic song, Beloved Isle Cayman. What you are hearing now is that recording. This symphonic recording is a fitting achievement for Cayman's most famous song by our most famous musician, Leela MacTaggart Ross Shire.
Reflected everywhere, who say of painless tremor, merging to darkest when near my thoughts fly northward, I always think of you. Time set in blue Caribbean sea. I'm coming very soon. Oh, beauteous, I still think. Although I've wandered far, my heart enshrines the end. Oh, unforgiven I cannot be forget.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. I hope you guys enjoyed that little tidbit of Cayman history. First of all, a big thank you to Miss Lisa Scott and Mr. Danny Scott for actually putting that together a few years ago, something that we can put in the archives and really share. I mean, when I first saw it, it touched me in such an amazing way. And I think that a lot of us don't always get to see like these old photos and really learn about our history. And I thought it was quite appropriate coming off of the discussion that we had last week, which in large part was a lot of it is understanding where we're from and what we're all about and accepting the good, the bad, and I guess sometimes the indifferent. And, you know, we understand where we are today once we know where we've actually come from, the journey that our people have taken. So I absolutely fell in love with that video, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Good morning to all of you, Olivia, Dawn, Marcia, Tashika, Irvlyn, Marshall, Morna, Vicky. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Nelson, I'm glad that you enjoyed the video. I want to invite you to go to the Facebook page called Beloved Isles Cayman. I don't know who started this page, but the videos on the page, as well as how you can order a DVD copy of this video. And it talks about and it shares some photos, which we were able to get from that Facebook page, of the life of Miss Leela McTaggart Ross Shire. So I thought it was most befitting. You know, obviously she was a prolific songwriter and musician. And of course, as a woman back in those days, we can certainly appreciate what that would have took to even, you know, be able to do all of those things, and to know that she had a father who was, you know, encouraging her to follow her first love and her first passion, which was definitely music. So there were a couple photos that they shared here on the Facebook page as well. So this is Miss Leela and her first husband, Bentley, and this was their wedding party, which, by the way, is a very large wedding party. I don't know if this was standard for the day, probably not. But I mean, he had, it looks like probably, oh my gosh, quite a number of groomsmen, people, probably at least 4, and looks like she had quite a few bridesmaids. And then I don't know if they're all bridesmaids or just part of, you know, the family and the wedding party. But, you know, this is, I think, an interesting photo, and it certainly represents Cayman of the time. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting is when Mr. Frank McField said that, listen, back in those days, Cayman was segregated. And I think, again, in light of our discussions that we had last week, a lot of people forget those things. And I mean, there are people like Steve McField, Mr. McField is still in his 80s, who would obviously remember the segregated days of Cayman. You know, Mr. McField has gone on to be an attorney at law, and we're hoping that we can have him on the program. We've been trying to reach out to him. This is when she was receiving her, I think this was the OBE that she had been receiving at this particular, in this particular photo. She was, you know, a Christian and active member of what we now know as Emsley Memorial Church, which, by the way, I didn't know actually had a different name at one point in time, Presbyterian Church. This is her with her 2 children. So I think it's just such an amazing history. And this is, I think, her children and her grandchildren as they got a little bit older. And of course, everyone knows that backdrop in terms of where that is. So we're going to have an interesting week, dabbling a little bit in Cayman history. And I thought it only be fitting that we started out with a woman first and foremost. And of course, the author of our national song, which every single time that I hear it, Beloved Isle Cayman, literally gives me goosebumps. And, you know, I just absolutely love that song. So this is just a little snippet about her. She died in 1968 at the age of 81. She almost made it to 82, 81 in 10 months. And again, she was married to a Mr. Ross, Bentley Ross of Honduras. So, you know, last week we were talking about the close ties between like Cayman and Honduras. And, you know, sometimes this is a perfect example, I guess, of how these marriages and these relationships were started, because, you know, people had access to travel to very limited places back in those days. In Honduras being in the proximity that it is in relation to the Cayman Islands, it would have been one of the locations that would have been a lot easier to get to and for people to be able to travel back and forth from. So Mr. Bentley Ross was her first husband. And of course, the last name Ross, we do know some Rosses here in Cayman. And he died tragically in Cuba in 1937. And then, of course, she was a librarian at the public library for many, many years. And then she remarried again to a Mr. Samuel Shire from Montreal, Canada. So a little bit of an international connection there. And then, unfortunately, he passed away again quite tragically in 1958. She did receive, as I said in that last photo, the Queen's Certificate and Badge of Honor in acknowledgement of her services in the field of music. So a very rich history. This is a photo here. Oh, right, this was her receiving her award back then. And yeah, I just thought that this was so incredibly fascinating. So on Tuesday show, tomorrow we're going to have Roy Bodden joining the program. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have a look at, we're going to be joined by Miss Kathy Fraser and Oliver Watler. And they're going to talk about Cayman history from this perspective of Cayman genealogy. Because again, I think that that's one of the key things that we have to just simply understand. Where is it that we are coming from? How have we developed as such an interesting cultural mix of individuals? So it was a very eventful weekend. We do have a couple other things that I want to delve into. So in case you've not seen it, we put up an ad yesterday. It says, Huyafa, let's focus on Cayman history and know who we are. I can't stress enough how history plays an important part of who we become, who we are now, and the things that we certainly pride ourselves in and that we hold near and dear to our hearts. Now, of course, you know, history is very, very complex. We hope to be able to get people on board who can share it from different angles. So we, again, have invited Mr. Steve McField on the program. I think that he would be most interesting to learn a little bit about the African history of the Cayman Islands, some of the more traditional Black families in the Cayman Islands, which include the McFields. You know, where did they come from? You know, what's their sort of background? And so we're hoping that he will be able to join the program at some point this week. We are also trying to get hold of a gentleman in East End. He's the oldest now resident of that district, so that he can share some of his thoughts. He's in his 90s with us as well. And we're trying to make some arrangements to make that happen. And it's a little bit difficult, obviously, with COVID-19 and, you know, trying to use technology, which he may not have access to where he's at. But we're going to do our best to try to flush it out and to get it sorted. So we will certainly let you guys know in advance if that happens, because I think, you know, these are the things that we definitely want to be tuning into. You know, it's just good to know more about who we are. And history can be, someone said to me this weekend, that history can be so incredibly interesting because a lot of times history can actually be rewritten for, you know, individuals and so on. I thought there's a good deal of truth to that. And someone said, you know, history stands for his story. And so whoever the historian is, or whoever, you know, is sharing that information, they will certainly be telling it from their perspective, which isn't always going to be entirely without some prejudices. History can be highly subjective. And I think that that is why it is very, very important to have a good variety of persons on when you start talking about the history of a people and the history of a nation. So we will certainly continue to have that dialogue as much as we possibly can. And, you know, I invite you guys to tune in for that. So good morning. Let's see if we can read some of your comments. I don't know if you guys see that we have a new little logo here. It looks a little tiny in my screen. Is that just my eyes? Or is it super tiny? It's probably the same size as what was there before, right? I'm gonna check that out now. It looks really, really small. So we will have that fixed and sorted out this morning. All right, so let us have some of your comments. Tashika says, tears watching that video. Yes, I mean, it is, I think, a very emotional video. And it certainly brings out a lot of emotions, you know, pride, certainly a lot of national pride, but also maybe makes us a bit reminiscent of, you know, our own family, grandparents, great grandparents. Some of us may have been fortunate enough to know them. A lot of us didn't really get to know great grandparents. So we may only know that extra generation. It's outside of your parents, which would be your grandparents. And I think that grandparents have such a critical role in any society, in any community, even this day and age. You know, there's so much statistical information available about the importance of grandparents and how much more stable families are when they have grandmothers and grandfathers available to be part of that continuing legacy and, you know, trying to build those relationships through the years. So, Evelyn, good morning. Miss Morna, good morning to you. Brianna, thank you for tuning in. Trisha, good morning to the lovely Trisha. Sophia's here. Sophia says, good morning. Bless up, Miss Sandra. Thank you so much. Carol and Evelyn. Yeah, Evelyn, it is really tiny. So I've just sent that to my graphic designer because I'm like, I can barely see that. It's even smaller, I think, than the other one that we were using, which was just the standard CMR one. So we're going to go back to CMR for now until he fixes that for us. And hopefully we can get that sorted out. All right, good people. So welcome one and welcome all. The other things, I tell you what, it was actually a very busy weekend. We need to talk about a bit of a scammer alert that we published on our page yesterday. And, you know, it never gives me pleasure having to discuss scammers in the Cayman Islands. It's actually quite unfortunate because you know, a lot of times they are Caymanians. I mean, we want to talk about other people coming here and scamming us, and certainly that's possible and happens every single day. However, there are a lot of Caymanians who are involved in scamming each other and scamming expats and scamming other people. And so it was with a heavy heart yesterday that I had to write this story about this young lady by the name of, let me just pull up her name. Letitia, is that her name? Hold on. She has so many names, actually. That's part of the problem here. She creates all these social media profiles and goes by all these different names. So we came across multiple profiles and multiple names, and she has an excuse for everything, which is quite standard. I find for persons like this, it's very, very sad, but she's such a beautiful young lady. I mean, really, truly. It's unfortunate that she is engaging in this type of activity and really has acquired a name for herself that certainly does not do well for her. And, you know, her name is, let me give you one of her names. Letitia Thompson, I think, is her real name. But she has created, we came across, I think, 6 different names. So we have Lenorsha Kimpton, which is the initial name that we came upon when we got the report that she may have been scamming people. And so there was a question that was put to us by a member of the public to say, hey, this young lady is reaching out to individuals in the community and asking for donations for an abandoned child. And they wanted to know whether or not this was legit. And if it was legit, you know, they were happy to make a donation because they were moved by certainly the photos and the photographic evidence that was used. I want to show some of you that this morning because, well, I'm going to show it to all of you if you tuned in, obviously, but I think it leads one to understand how scammers work and the tactics that they use on individuals. And so hopefully what we're trying to do here is to educate people. So this is what was sent to persons on social media. Now, how this was done is, and we're going to talk a little bit about Letitia in her background here in a second, what we've been able to understand is going on, because it seems like a very complex and interesting situation is happening here. But what she did is she befriended persons on Facebook, on social media, and then she would in turn almost immediately send them this picture and give them this narrative about her trying to help this abandoned child. Now, for some people, the details were very, very sketchy, like she didn't provide much information when they pressed for information. And I just want to say that that's one of the hallmarks of someone who's trying to be deceptive. You know, if someone comes to you and says, oh, a baby has been abandoned, and there is this, you know, drive underway to ensure that this baby gets a start in life, and you start to ask questions like, okay, who is this baby for? Where is this baby? And all these other things. And you find the answers to be very, very light and sketchy, then I think that it's only fair to say that there is probably more to the situation than meets the eye. And so in this case, this flyer was sent to this individual. I don't think everyone asked the same number of questions, which I thought on social media, you know, last night the conversation kind of kicked into high gear. And there were some people who were of the opinion that, oh, you need to ask more questions. And I agree that we should all try to be as discerning as possible. But at the end of the day, there are people who are just honestly good people who, the second you say you need help, are going to dig deep and give you a donation, you know, without trying to interrogate you. But apparently, it seems like we all have to become interrogators in this day and age, because there are just people who are looking to take advantage of others. So donation of goods in the amount of $300 CI were given. We don't know how many additional persons may have contributed to this drive, so to speak. And we do have messages that were sent. What she would also do is she would scroll through, and here's an example of that. People who were selling things on, you know, on Facebook, they've got all these different groups that you can sell stuff in. So there's like the Facebook marketplace. There's different buy and sell groups as well. And so she would actually go through and contact these individuals and say that she is looking for donations. And in this case, she was asking for any clothes that you may not be using, or a bassinet to a baby that is in need, donating any baby clothes that you may not be using, etc. So again, she used the exact same flyer. So we sent out, because you know sometimes we don't know who these people are. And interestingly enough, I didn't realize until afterwards, after she started messaging me, that I had actually had some very limited contact with her a number of years ago, and she was using that to try to convince me to not run the story. And at some point, I had to think about the greater good of the community. Is it best to warn people about this young lady who appears to have a prolific history of taking advantage of other people? Or is this a situation where, you know, I just look out for her and be damned with everybody else who is kind-hearted and trying to assist other people, especially during a time like this, when, listen, we are all in a crunch here. COVID-19 has hit us with a vengeance, and financially, we're all going to be going through very, very tough times if you haven't already started. And so at this time, we have to be very careful with the groups, the organizations, and the people that we donate and that we support. And I hate to say it, but those people who are always out there with their hands out, looking for a handout and not a hand up, it's during times like this that they are going to be very, very pinched, because there will not be people as open or as available really to assist them. And I think that alone concerns me, because you know there are legitimate causes out there, and there are legitimate people who are in need during this COVID-19 pandemic. So I don't know how long this scam has been going on for. It seems like it's been around a while. So she uses photos that are very emotive of this baby that has been discarded in the trash can. And she says, innocent babies are being abandoned. Now, of course, my first thought when I saw this, when the person first sent this to me, I didn't have to really look far to think, okay, this is some sort of fraudulent situation here, because where are these innocent babies being abandoned? Surely not in the Cayman Islands. Uh, I'm thankful to say that we have not gotten to the stage yet, and I hope that we never do, where people are taking babies and just throwing them in the trash can. And this is what this is. So this is a baby that has been thrown in the trash can. And so she decided to use, I don't know where she picked these pictures out of, if she just went to Google and found the most inflammatory and, emotive photos that she could find. But she's found these photos and put them into a flyer and claims that innocent babies are being abandoned. Again, it doesn't say where, but it does say fundraiser to help abandoned babies. Ladies of the Cayman Islands, let's do something to make a difference in these poor innocent babies' lives. Let's think about what if it was one of your own, you would want some assistance or someone to help your kid or your grandkids, niece, nephew, even. And then it kind of gets cut off, so I don't know what else it said. But then it has her contact number over on the side. And it looks like it is meant to be perforated, where you can like tear off, I guess, bits and pieces of this. But it's asking ladies to come forward and donate anything. It says, please, we ask the ladies to come forward and donate anything. And it gives her email address, which is leannepearson39@gmail.com. It gives one of her phone numbers. We know now that she has more than one. And then in the instance of the solicitation on Facebook, it has both phone numbers listed, and then it attaches the flyer as well. So, she reaches out to random people that she does not know. I think one of the reasons for that I have garnered through my investigations is that because people who actually know this young lady would not be minded to give her anything, because this is the kind of thing that apparently she does all the time. And the story changes considerably, when she is soliciting, whether it's money, funds, or whatever, from persons. So quite interestingly enough, we know at least one person and possibly more did give her a donation. So when we started digging, we sent out, like I said, this WhatsApp message. Immediately people came forward and said, we know this young lady, but not by that name. So they talked about her, having different names that she goes by. So this initial account was Lenorcia Kimpton. She also has accounts in the name of Lily Thompson with no H, so Tompson. Then she has Letitia Thompson with an H. Then she has Leticia Thompson, Leticia Pearson, Leanna Pearson, and we've garnered that Leanna is actually her middle name. And then we have Leanne, spelled Lyann Thompson. So different variations of the name. We found at least those 6 accounts. And when we contact persons, we heard a plethora of stories about her, which of course we wanted to validate and to find out more. Now, people in Cayman, as you guys know, talk a lot. And I always say, if it don't go so, it probably isn't far from so. And so, of course, the stories were of her generally being known as an individual who takes advantage of other people, aka a scammer. And this is not the first time that she's done something like this. There were allegations that she'd set up numerous GoFundMe accounts, which we were only able to find one, which is no longer a valid account. It seems like it may have been taken down. But with all the different names, it was a little bit challenging to even search on GoFundMe, because I don't know what names she would have been using. So we did find one under the Lenorcia Kimpton account or fake name or whatever that's supposed to represent. And that account is no longer valid. It was actually taken down. I'm probably guessing by GoFundMe, because if they become aware of fraudulent individuals, they will certainly take the accounts down. Now, she uses a picture here, which I want you guys to pay very close attention to how people are, right? Beautiful young lady. The majority of her photos are her being very dolled up with lots of makeup and looking quite beautiful. And the one photo, of course, that she chooses for GoFundMe looks like she's 60 years old and she's had a rough life. And this is how people prey on you guys. And the only reason why we put this information out there is we are hopeful to be able to save some individuals from persons like this. Because again, you know, we all work hard for our money. So no one would want to be taken advantage of, especially in a time like this. So here's this photo of her looking very sick and desperate. She claims that she's 40 years old and she's been diagnosed with stage 4 endometriosis. There are people who allege that she was going around telling people that she had stage 4 endometriosis cancer or something like that. We could not see the rest of this text, so I don't know if it says that or not. I mean, I don't know that there's a stage 4. Stage 4 normally does talk about things like cancers and not just endometriosis. So I don't really know what the rest of that says, to be fair to her. And she says that she's 40 years old. Now, there are people who are disputing her age as well. So I've had people who say that they're family members of hers. Let me just try to pull one up that said that she was actually born in hold on one second. This person says she's not 40 years old. She was born in 1979, and they know that because they're family members. And so they very well know how old she is. So I don't know anything about that part of it, but again, people had a lot to say about this young lady. So, I mean, that's 41, so I guess she's a little bit older than that now. So it could just be that she had put this up at a time when she was 40. So we'll give her a pass on that. I don't think that that's really here nor there, but this account was one that we definitely found on GoFundMe page. So what happened was we sent out a little message saying, hey, does anybody know this young lady? Let me find the original account. So this Lenorsha Kimpton, and this is the account that she was going by. It had a lot of people. So as you can see, we actually had 93 mutual friends, but there were a lot more people on there that she was actually friends with. And she made contact with us almost immediately after we sent out the message, which all that means is someone in a news group informed her that we were making some inquiries about her. And normally when we start making inquiries about you, there is a concern for the person that we're making inquiries about. So immediately she contacted a local politician saying that she needed my number. It was urgent, that I had put up something on her Facebook page about her, which interestingly enough, she actually got that information wrong. We were still in the process of gathering information and writing a story. So there was nothing up about her. There was just this WhatsApp message that had went out inquiring about who she was and if anyone knew her. And like I said, the immediate response, and when I say immediate, I mean immediate, is we were inundated with messages of people who were like, listen, this girl is a scammer. She's always up to something. You know, be careful. If she's asking you to help her with donations, don't do it. You know, there was just a ton of immediate responses to that. And so she obtained our contact number, which, as you guys know, is not in the public anyway, from a local politician, I understand, and then contacted me directly and said, oh, Miss Sandra, you know, don't put up the story. And I'm going to let you guys listen to the voice notes because I think voice notes have a way of saying a lot about who we are. And I kept looking at her pictures thinking, this woman looks familiar. Like I feel like I know her from somewhere. I've seen her around, right? So anyway, she claims that her account had been hacked. So that was the first thing that she said, is that her social media account had actually been hacked. Now, I personally love when people say foolishness like that, because I can tell you that hacking someone's account, everybody uses that word so incredibly loosely, and they actually do not even know what it means. So when someone hacks your account, that means that they have acquired your username and your password, which would be your email address and your password, and they have gone into your social media accounts. And if that is the case, right, and you would have known that surely before yesterday when I was asking, who is this person? Don't you think that you would have done something about it? Now, we're very common sense people here in the Caribbean. Even if we have no formal education, we believe in using the God given gift of common sense, which, by the way, isn't that common anymore. I think when God was giving it out over the last couple of generations, he skipped a few people. And so common sense is something that is sorely missing. But yeah, okay, so you knew that you had been hacked and all this time you did nothing about it? Okay. And then within minutes of claiming that you were hacked, all of a sudden, this account disappears, this hacked account disappears. So what is this? The hacker also has access to your WhatsApp messages to know that now you're telling me that you've been hacked. So the account immediately disappears, and in its place, a new one shows up called now Leanne Thompson. So yet another name, again using the middle name and last name combination, and with different spellings of the last name. So good morning, Jessica. Hi, Mitzi. Louis has joined in. Sophia, thank you so much. I'm going to read your comment here in a minute, Sophia. So then this additional account comes up. And then in addition to that, she starts to then put on this account, oh, I have been hacked. So again, the timing is beyond interesting. You mentioned nothing about being hacked prior to this. You only become hacked once you know that CMR is investigating the situation and is asking some questions about you specifically. And then all of a sudden, you allege to have been hacked, and you put up on the new page, oh, you know, I've been hacked. My apologies, my old Facebook account was hacked, so I'm just trying to resend friend requests. I seriously doubt that it was hacked. Number one, you wouldn't be able to take it down. And why would the hacker stop? If someone had hacked your account and was using it to solicit donations and funds, why would they have taken it down and stopped all of a sudden? Like, the timing just doesn't even make any sense. They would continue to solicit from people, and you know, any willing people that they found to give donations, they would have accepted. Now, here's the thing why we know this account wasn't hacked. Because the person who received one of the messages and who gave a $300 donation of brand new baby goods, that individual actually, and she actually showed some pictures of the things that she had acquired, but that individual actually went as far as having her come and pick up the goods. So let me try to comprehend what it is that you're now saying to us. Your account was hacked unbeknownst to you, and you show up to obtain the goods from someone who you wouldn't know anything about because your account was hacked. So I'm just woefully confused about exactly how that happens. You know, if my account is hacked and someone is soliciting donations using my photo or my alias or whatever, and I don't know anything about it, well, I surely should not be the person who would show up to collect the donated funds. That doesn't sound like somebody's hacked your account. That sounds like you've been up to some kind of shenanigans. So I'm a little confused. And like I said, I do want to share some of the voice notes with you guys because, of course, here on CMR, we're all about truth and we don't make these things up. So I want you guys to comprehend exactly what was being said here. So this was the first message that we received. So bear with me one second. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Let me just turn up the volume.
And whatever up on your Cayman Mall Road in regards about me. Listen, my Facebook has been hacked, okay? My Facebook has been hacked. So I need you to take that down because I don't need to be, those things don't need to be publicized when it's wrong information, okay? So I would really, really appreciate if you would take that down from off of Cayman Mall Road because it's nothing like that.
Okay, so first of all, this message was sent at 4:03 p.m. The story was not even up at that point. And so we responded and said that we actually haven't posted anything as yet, but we will be glad to include your comment in the story. So she says it has been posted because my uncle saw it and it was posted at 2:24 p.m. So of course, poor Leticia Thompson, or whatever name she's going to go by today, um, like I said, what she received was someone in her news group, and I know exactly who it is by, but listen, we've got people in our news group, and I know that there's no measure of confidentiality when I send things to those individuals. That message actually went out at 2:21. So someone forwarded that to her, I guess, at 2:24, because then she responded to us and said it was posted at 2:24 today. So that person saw the message, sent it to her, and said, "Oh gosh, CMR is looking into you." And she must have seen that message and then assumed or thought that we had posted that on our social media platform. And then, of course, she makes up some story that her uncle saw it. Well, your uncle could not have seen something that did not exist unless he's got some kind of superpowers that we don't know anything about. So nonetheless, we clarified with her that that's not a post. And I said, you can go and check the page yourself. It's a public page. But the story will be posted shortly. And I don't know who your uncle is, but he's obviously misinformed. So then she comes back and she says, that looks horrible when someone can hack into people's Facebook profiles and let these things sort out things. This gets a little confusing, but it says, and let these sort of things happen. This is why Caymanian can't get a good job or even apply for jobs or anything because of stuff like this. Now, I want to make it very, very clear. This is not why Caymanians cannot get a good job. It's not because they're being hacked into. It's because scammers and people like this young lady think that they can fool people. And there's a saying that you can fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. And rest assured when I tell you, I am not easily fooled. She goes on to say, I don't have that Facebook due to it being hacked. Well, I just have my lawyer give you a call. I will call him now. And I said, sure, no problem. Have your lawyer call us. Everything we're about to publish and say is 100% accurate. We have verified and done our research. And where we don't know something, but we have questions, we've also said that. So, people always think that they can shut down the truth. And trust me, we've seen it on more than one occasions here on Cayman Mall Road. And you guys know the court case that we're going through right now is another perfect example of this, where people try to shut down the truth by getting lawyers involved. They're trying to, well, I'm going to call the police and say that although everything you're saying about me is true and accurate, that it's harassment or it's this or it's that. And, we have a job to do. And we try to be fair in that job. And we obviously do our best to get as much information as possible. In this case, there's overwhelming evidence that this young lady has a real issue with setting up these types of scams, and that's what they are if they're not legit. And I don't know what she's doing with the donated goods. Some people speculate that maybe she's selling it or whatever. I don't really know, but this is a problem. So we said no problem, and then she goes on to send us another voice note.
Sandra, because this is unfair because people can. This not happened to me once, but this is the second or third time people have hacked into my account. And it looks pretty bad. You understand? And that is why I come, this is what I don't understand. And say your own Caymanians beat you down to absolutely nothing. Nothing at all.
Okay, so now all of a sudden we go from accounts being hacked to it's your own Caymanian's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. That's the thing that I don't get with these people. They never take responsibility for themselves and their own actions. So first, you've been hacked, right? It's not the first time. Listen, I have had a Facebook account since 2009, and not long after, I guess, Facebook kind of really started to take over. I have never been hacked. What you might have happened is you might have people creating cloned accounts. And listen, I can tell you, anytime someone creates a cloned account where they basically try to steal your photo and you create a fake account, there will be people immediately who will notify you and say, hey, I've just received an invite from you under this name using your photo. Is this you? And so almost immediately, because everybody knows about these clone accounts, whether someone is trying to clone your account or not, and people contact you and advise you. And the thing you do is you report it to Facebook, and Facebook will take it down. or force that individual to actually prove their ID. So for you to say that you've not been hacked once, but possibly 2 or 3 times, you can't even remember because it keeps happening to you. What is it that is so special about you that makes people always want to constantly hack you? I mean, really. Most people who get cloned are public figures, politicians, because scammers know that they can utilize those accounts and talk about, oh, we have a fund set up, but of course you have to send us money first and blah, blah, blah. You're not going to have a situation where people are like, oh, I'm begging clothes for a baby that does not even exist or a situation that does not even exist, and then go and pick it up. That means that your account hasn't been hacked. You showed up to this woman's place of business and picked up the brand new baby clothing. That was you. It wasn't anybody else. That was 100% you. Okay, so don't give us this BS story about your account having been hacked. Good morning, Jennifer. She says, yes, always warn, especially the elderly population, as they often get roped into these types of things. Good morning to you, Sue. Sharon, good morning. Jake says, didn't even know that was the same person. Wow. And this is why it is our responsibility here at Cayman Road to inform the public, because oftentimes even good, sensible people like Jake are not realizing that this is the same person who has 6 different social media accounts. Sophia says, Miss Sandra, it's so much scammers here in Cayman working in Cayman using overseas numbers with working Caymanians through Jamaica banks, money transfers, businesses, people hacking Caymanians' bank accounts. It's a big scamming business. I hope the law catch them all. Well, the law is not going to catch them all. What we have to do is we have to be vigilant in exposing them. And that's precisely what we will continue to do here on Cayman Law Road. Morning, Jessica. Morning, Louie. Good morning, Mitzi. Maureen. Good morning, Angel. Cayman have scammers. We have a lot of scammers here, and we have our fair share of homegrown scammers as well, which is very unfortunate. You know, Caymanians have always had a history of being very, of course, this is no longer our legacy, but normally it was a case where if a Caymanian came and asked you for something, you knew that they were in need, because Caymanians have always been very prideful people. Like, we didn't believe in handouts and we didn't believe in begging. Unfortunately, this has changed in recent times, and we have Caymanians who make it their business as a profession to go out there scamming NAU, scamming politicians, scamming any people in the community who will listen to them and give them a handout or give them money. So we all have to be very discerning and do our due diligence. And these are Caymanians that are doing this. I want to make this very, very, very clear. These are our own people, and we need to put a stop to this foolishness. You know, in this day and age, you can't go to the grocery store in peace without someone walking up to you constantly begging. And some of the grocery stores have had to make provisions in place where security guards no longer allow certain individuals on their property, because that's all they do. They'll go to Kirk's supermarket, they'll go to, you know, Hurley's or Foster's, and they hang out there all day, walk around begging people, and they probably earn more in that day begging people than the rest of us who have a legit job and who have to get up and actually do work in order to get money, right? And they're just looking for an easy handout, and you'll see them riding up and down on their bicycles and so forth. Now, some of these individuals have substance abuse problems, but certainly not all of them. So she started out by telling us that she's been hacked. Those were the 2 voice notes so far. Then she goes on to say, Miss Sandra, I didn't have that posted on my Facebook page. Honest to God, I am in the process of trying to get a job, and I can't let this interfere. Don't blame me for something I didn't do. I never posted anything like that on my Facebook page. Now, here's the interesting thing about it. This is at 4:29 p.m. that she sent that message. What was she referring to? We had never said, even the initial message that we sent out, we had never said why we were asking about this young lady. We just said, hey, does anyone know this young lady? We didn't share. Listen to me very carefully now. Those of you who want to become detectives and maybe one day want to work with the RCIPS, this is where you have got to pay attention, because you don't give and show all of your cards at one time. This is the work of a good detective, right? So we never said that to anyone. We never showed it to anyone. So when she says that I didn't post that on my Facebook page, what are you talking about? Post what? So I never said anything because you know what they say about a guilty conscience or guilty mind? Sometimes you just let them keep talking. And the more they talk, the more that they bury themselves. So I never responded to her and said, what are you talking about? We never posted anything. Allow her to continue talking. But right there, she showed herself. So you've got a hacked account that you know nothing about. And then you're able to know what this hack account didn't do. Oh, nothing was posted on your page. Well, what are you talking about? Nothing like what? Okay. How would you know what it is we're talking about when we haven't publicly said what we're talking about? The only people that would know are the people who've received it and the sender of whatever this is. So the sender would know that it was actually never posted on her page, but it was being sent in a private message. So right there, this young lady managed to out herself, and quite unfortunate for her, we are smarter than she thinks. And so we allowed her to keep talking. And then she comes back trying to appeal to me by saying, I was the young lady who came to your house that time with my husband to look at your place, and we gave you a quote for redoing your bathroom. So again, this is another tactic that scammers use. Oh, you know, woe is me. I know you, you know me. I'm really a good person. Well, honey, I don't know you. You know, you came and gave a quote on some job, and that's where, and when she said that, I was like, oh, that's why you look familiar. But I don't know you from the man on the moon. And I'm not going to be sitting here, you know, yes, South Marjorie, I'm going to, yeah. So I don't know you from the man on the moon. I can't vouch for you. But apparently the people who do know you, and there's been a lot of them, are not vouching for you either. These people are like, she's a known scammer. This is what she does. She's been scamming NAU for years. You know, she's here with her husband, and you know, they're not even in a bona fide relationship. He's just here to get status off of her, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's just a hot mess of a situation, right? She says, I remember when you had stuff giving kids clothes. I even remember messaging you too, had asked you about them for a friend of mine, but never once put it on Facebook. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I'm asking you, please don't post this. It would probably affect my interview. So all of a sudden you have a job interview today. This is a woman who's not worked in years and who has largely survived off of NAU, because every single job that she gets, she does not manage to keep because of sticky fingers. And for those of you who are listening who don't know the lingo of sticky fingers, that means you have a propensity to steal and take what is not yours. And or she will just show up and fail things like fail tests and whatever on purpose so that she doesn't get a job. Because by all measures, she's actually, you know, she's not a stupid person by any stretch of imagination, as most scammers you soon come to realize are definitely not. But this rat hole is a lot deeper, so we're going to keep digging. So she says, I'm trying to better myself during this COVID-19 virus. Don't allow this to affect my chances. I'm asking you politely to believe me when I said I didn't have anything to the such up. I had you as a friend on my Facebook friends list. And did you ever see me posted anything like that? Now, apparently one of her accounts does have me as a friend. Like I said, there's multiple accounts, so I don't know, you know. And then she sends me a picture of her and her husband, and then she goes on to send another voice note.
You understand that the only thing that anybody can say that they see me post on Facebook is me advertising clothes and always putting food on my you know, anytime I cook, you know, I put up my food or whatever, or advertising my clothes because you know I do online ordering if somebody willing to order or whatever. I order clothes from or whatever. That is the only thing. Nobody can never say that I have ever posted anything like that on my Facebook. Never.
So all of these messages were sent, and I tell you when, you know, we did not respond to any of them because again, we're allowing her, we're giving her enough rope to hang herself. Let her talk, let her keep talking and set the narrative. Because once again, no one has ever said that you shared those things on your Facebook page. No one ever said that, and no one ever showed it to anyone. So for you to preemptively know what it is that we're talking about, you've got some straight up psychic powers, my girl. Tell us how that works. South Marjorie, George Fullerton. Hi, George. So people are talking about other types of fraud. Anne says they robbed my friend of $800 out of his account. So let us focus on what is at hand here, which is their own local hand-grown scammers. So yes, there are other scammers out there that will try to access your bank account and do all sorts of things. But what we have here is a Caymanian who is taking advantage of people. So you don't even have to go to Africa or have somebody from Ethiopia trying to break into your account anymore or hack into your account, or you don't need scammers from Jamaica doing it. You've got your own Caymanians who are looking for a way to take advantage of you and the system and everything else. So South Marjorie, yes, you were notified before, used the right, yes. So again, she comes forward with this story and this narrative talking about something that the only way that she would know anything about if she was actually involved in the process, if she was involved in it. But it doesn't stop there. So people say every single year, apparently this young lady becomes pregnant and she makes these announcements. This is her on her WhatsApp status. Now, a lot of you, I'm not a person that hardly ever changes my WhatsApp picture or my WhatsApp status, but apparently some of you change it every other minute and you let everybody know what's going on in your business, even when your business is a big fake lie. So in this instance now, she puts up this information here that says, can't wait to hold you in my arms, KLTP. And then she has a little baby and mom emoji and then a little heart. So she keeps talking about, from what we've garnished from her friends and relatives, every single year she's having a baby. And this was posted on Thursday. So when it said yesterday, this was on Thursday actually, at 10:51 p.m., right? So that was her status. And then by Friday, let me just see if I can find it now. She changed it to say, praying that God will see that KLTP, I guess that's the name of the baby. So TP is probably Thompson Pearson, and I don't know what the KNL, what she was going to name the child, will be okay, please God. So now by Friday, we see where this narrative, which has been used multiple times, of her losing a child starts to play again. And I understand this happens on an annual basis where she's getting a baby, she's having a baby, and then tragically the baby is lost. And it's this that's used to try to garnish sympathy from people and I guess money and whatever. The problem with that is, being that we live in the Cayman Islands and people know your business, everybody knows that this woman has had a hysterectomy because apparently she's had some sort of issues, endometriosis or whatever, so she has no children. And she actually had a hysterectomy a couple of years ago. And if those of you who are not aware, once you've had a hysterectomy, it becomes impossible for you to have a child. That's medically impossible. So someone who cannot even have a child is talking about the fact that she's having a child. Okay, so then we move on. This rabbit hole, like I said, runs really deep. So she created the new fake account. There's more. Give me 1 second. I gotta load up the pictures because there were so many of them. In fact, let me just pull some up here. Yeah, so the story just continually changed. I mean, it was like one lie after the next. I just couldn't even keep up. So give me 1 second. I'm going to pull up some of these other pictures. So then what she did was she created this new account, like I said. She went on, when we eventually posted the story, she went on Facebook and started commenting on the story that we had posted. And in her comments, she shared quite a bit of information. Now, before she actually got to commenting with this fake account, apparently she had reached out to us on Facebook, which we hadn't seen. Well, I personally hadn't seen. I don't know if one of the other administrators had, but I personally had not seen her comment, her message on Facebook through the page because I was busy working on the story. So what she had done was she contacted the page, and through the page and through another account, which we didn't even know existed until we saw the message, she was saying evidently that, let me just see if I can find this one. she contacted us through 2 pages. So one, Leanne Thompson says, at 3:08 p.m., Miss Sandra, my Facebook was hacked, my account was hacked, so please take that down. And again, we hadn't posted anything yet. So this was her acting off of misinformation. Then she has another account, which by the way, she is now disabled this one as well, where she went on to say that, and apparently this account now she had reached out to us previously. So she says, this was at 2:47. And she says, Sandra, I don't appreciate what is being posted on this about me. The young lady had a baby in Dog City and now this, like seriously. So now she's changed her story to the fact that there's some young lady, and we don't know what young lady she's referring to, what she's talking about, who had a baby in Dog City, and I guess she's trying to help this young lady collect some goods for her baby. Now, we have spoken to persons in the community of Dog City, which is a very tight-knit community, and I can assure you that none of them know what this woman is talking about. And in fact, they were very offended because they said, listen, you know, people try to give Dog City a certain reputation, but, you know, they don't need to come here creating drama, just throwing Dog City's name out there and trying to create a situation that doesn't exist, because they don't know anything about this girl. They don't have any contacts with her in Dog City. No one hangs with her. No one would be asking her to assist them with collecting baby goods or anything else for that matter. So that was also determined to be a lie. I feel like I'm on Jerry Springer this morning. That was a lie. So again, we go from, I'm having a little bit of difficulty pulling up these photos to share. But these were some of her comments on social media, which she then turned around and removed afterwards. So we're going to talk about the social media situation here and how things started to get a little bit heated in light of that. So for some reason, I can't upload my pictures, so I may have to restart that phone. But let me just have a look here if I can pull up some of the pictures here. All right, so yes, so that message was sent. And then when I looked at this message from this this particular account called Lily Thompson with no H, apparently back in April, she had messaged asking about any new born baby clothes for a baby girl or baby bag. Need like mittens, hats, onesies, and sleepers, anything I can be reached at. And then she provided her number and says, WhatsApp only though. So don't call, WhatsApp only. And I hadn't even realized, because at the time, you know, we had just responded and said that, you know, we had 3 bags of donated clothes, but they were already gone by the time that she had messaged to us. I think this is something we had actually posted on our Facebook page, right? And those funds or those clothes were already gone. So it was a little bit late for her. Give me one second here. I'm going to go ahead and pull up these messages. I'm trying to find this particular one. So then she took, after the story went up, she took to her new account, her newly created account, and started commenting and making all sorts of messages and comments on our Facebook page, right? So she was saying all sorts of things about what was going on. Hold on one second here, folks. So she made mention of, let me just try to see if I can find one of these. So now the narrative changes yet again, and she claims that she was trying to adopt a baby. So we go from someone hacked my account and I knew nothing about it, to I'm trying to help some lady in Dog City with a baby. And what she told the people who gave the donation was, in fact, that she had, the child was in foster care not with her, but the child was in foster care. She gave them that bit of information, which again, we don't know what child she's talking about. No one seems to know what child she's talking about. So all of a sudden, then she was trying to help a lady in Dog City. That turned out to be a lie. And then, people on Facebook were questioning what she was saying and so on. And when she then realized that that narrative wasn't going anywhere, she then claims to have been wanting to adopt a child from Honduras. So someone else commented that, listen, they are very familiar with the process of getting children out of Honduras. And if you think just because Honduras is a poor country, that you can go there and just pick up these people, children, and walk out the country with a child, you would be sadly mistaken. That it takes way more than that. Like, they do proper background checks. You need to prove that you have a job, and all of these sorts of things. And this is a woman who's not had employment for quite some time. So where she would be adopting a child from, or how she'd be adopting a child, only God knows. But let me just see if I can bring up some of these comments now that she made on social media, because they have since been removed. So I think that when people start to be found out, and it becomes obvious that no one is believing them in their lies, then all of a sudden, they do want to change the story up. And this is precisely what was happening here. So there's a bunch of things that she said and claimed on social media, and then people are like, that doesn't really make any sense. We're not understanding what it is that you're saying. And as people questioned and dug a little bit deeper, and the story began to fall apart, all of a sudden the actual postings started to disappear. And other people were making allegations. So there's an Alton Davis who said that this girl's a wicked girl. She has a business and a take people permit money and not put in no permit, and I tell them, say it turned down. Something have to do with this gal there. Here's another story about this woman. It says one person. Alton goes on to say, wicked, she wicked. Alton's from Jamaica, of course. Wicked, she wicked. How people are going to lie about sickness, worst of all, cancer. She not normal. Another comment says, and actually this is a good one to kind of show you guys, because this is someone else coming forward who said that they had been contacted, or their wife had been contacted by her, perpetrating this lie. So, people tend to get caught up in their lies very, very easily, I'm afraid. And this person was willing to come forward and speak their mind. So this Ronaldo Jr. says, Latanya Thompson, so this was the new account that was created yesterday. You spoke with my wife yesterday about the baby being abandoned, and you said the baby was in foster home and on island, but you couldn't give her details. My wife went around looking things for this little baby because she has a heart, but not for scammers. This is the picture. So he actually demonstrated the photo that was sent. And then her sister, named Latanya Thompson, I think he might have been confusing the two, because Latanya is actually the sister. Actually, she jumps into the conversation defending her sister. And this is where I want to talk about enablers. Now, you guys have heard me use this term before. An enabler is someone who encourages the bad behavior in other people, either directly or indirectly, and allows them to continue doing what it is that they do, which is take advantage of people and scam people. So enablers come forward and they make excuses for people and their bad behavior all the time. This is their norm. So her sister jumped on social media and started to make comments like, well, you guys are saying that she doesn't deserve a baby. Why would you say that? That's not fair. If she needs donation she can't afford, one doesn't need one. I don't know what she's talking about. Okay, if it's true like that, I said wrong is wrong and right is right. She should make a public apology if that would help. If it would help. You make an apology when you are sincerely making an apology. You don't make a public apology because you think it's going to help. Help with what? Help take the story down? Like, I'm not really understanding what that comment even meant. the defending of her sister continued. So her focus again was, oh, but you guys are saying she doesn't deserve a baby. The point that people are making is you're not going to get a baby out of Honduras or most countries around the world if you cannot prove to the relevant agencies, adoptive agencies, that you are able to take care of a child. How do you become an adoptive parent if you can't even take care of yourself? No one is going to give you a child that is already in foster care or foster home and a disadvantaged, situation, and give it to you when you're out there begging to support yourself. So I think that was the point that people were trying to make. It wasn't a question of, oh, she doesn't deserve a child just because she can't hold a job or she doesn't have a job. The point being that no one is going to give you a job no one is going to give you a child, my apologies, if you do not have a legitimate job. So distractors and enablers like to jump into the conversation and say, well, it's not fair that you guys are saying that she shouldn't have a child. That's not right. Even if she has to go out there and beg for that child, then she deserves to have a child. Madam, with all due respect, that is really not the issue here. Someone may have made that comment as a sub-thought, as an aside to the main discussion. The main discussion is, why is your sister going around telling a lie in order to obtain goods, money, services, whatever, right? There's no adoption taking place. And in fact, someone said, quite interestingly enough, if for as long as they've known this girl, she's been adopting a child, the child would be like 15 and almost an adult by now, because that's how long she's been going around telling people that she is adopting a child. It's been a long story, a long line. So once again, no truth to that. So I think things were getting a little bit heated, and she decided to all these comments that she had posted, because then she claimed that the child that she was trying to adopt was out of Honduras. And of course, everyone then was like, that just does not sound right at all. And so she only had two people defending her. One was her sister, and one was this other woman who claims that she's from Honduras, and she doesn't know her, but she knows that she's been trying to get a baby out of Honduras. Okay. That doesn't really mean anything to anyone with any common sense. So Alton claims that she took his money for a work permit, claims that it was denied but had never put in for the permit, and he's demanding his money back. Then faded Mary Jean Edwards, listen to how sometimes people think. She says some people are too gullible and deserve all they get. So she's talking to all of you kind-hearted people who give people like this woman stuff. This is why when people come asking you for stuff, according to Mary Jane Edwards, don't be gullible. So you deserve it if you get scammed, she claims. No one takes anything with a grain of salt anymore. They think that if it's posted on social media, then it must be true. No one does background checks or finds out accuracy of information. In this day and age, with scamming on such high alert, people are still falling for crap. Kiss my teeth. Now, the issue with this is a form of what we call victim blaming. And then, of course, her sister jumps in and says, but definitely I agree with you. But of course you do, because you're defending your sister who's a scammer. So all I can tell you is if you work hard for your money, do not allow people like this to make you part with it easily. I agree with Mary Jean Edwards. Not that people are gullible. I think people are kind-hearted and they actually want to help. And they believe these stories when people come to them. I mean, who lies about stage 4 cancers, or who lies about having a baby and losing it every single year? You know, who lies about adopting a child, first helping a mother in Dog City and then adopting one from Honduras? Most people don't really lie about these things, but there are people out there who will make up any kind of story in order to get your sympathy so that you can give them a donation, which is fraudulent if the need does not exist. And there is no baby. There is no baby in foster care that this woman knows anything about. And that is why she was not able to provide the information that the person was even asking about. Because there is no information to provide because there is no child. So, at the end of the day, sadly, people are kind-hearted. I wouldn't say that people are gullible. And so they will fall into traps. And this, again, is why CMR thinks that it is our public responsibility to warn people, the general public, of individuals who have a habitual history of doing this sort of thing. So someone says, I think that the photos actually used are from an abandoned baby in St. Lucia, like that was just abandoned last month or 2 months ago. So this is what it is. A very sad situation. So someone says, until she's proven guilty, making disparaging remarks is a form of bullying. Well, folks, you've seen the evidence for yourself. You can determine what is going on. Once again, deflectors and enablers jump in on the social media conversations and try to take away from what the real issues are here. So South Marjorie wants to know, what is she doing with these things? We don't actually know with any degree of certainty, but we believe that they're being sold. So you know how she made mention of the fact that she actually shared some of the photos of clothes and stuff like that that she has gotten from people, some of the donations. So yes, we believe that she may be selling them because she claims to then bring in clothing for others. So the belief is that she's making them available for purchase. And, in this case, there was a photo of the clothes still having the name tags and stuff on them. There's quite a few, I'm sorry, I can't bring this image up, but there's quite a few of them that were there. And she says that these were clothes that were donated and I'm in the process of adopting. So please tell me if I'm wrong for asking for donations. I was scamming or conning anyone. Again, these items are given to me freely. Yes, they're given to you freely based on a lie. And that's where the scamming becomes relevant. She goes on to say, if anyone knows Honduras, they would know that over there, people have babies and leave them to die or abandon. And all I was doing is trying to give a baby a chance at a better life. I'm not really sure how that would be a better life because you can't even take care of yourself. You're an NAU. I'm pretty sure that NAU is not in the business of, well, I guess if you have a child naturally, they can't do anything about that. They can't stop you from getting pregnant, which one of these days we need to have that conversation because I think NAU needs to put certain measures in place to prevent people from getting on NAU and just keep popping out these children because we're all having to pay for that. We're all having to support social services and people who refuse to work and who refuse to use something called birth control. So you're an NAU client, and you actually think that NAU is going to say, oh yes, go and adopt a child. You have no job. You haven't had a job for years. Fiscally, you've got issues, right? But you go ahead and adopt a child. Even if the agency was stupid enough to allow you to adopt a child despite having no job, how does that afford a better life for a child? And how does NAU sit down and approve that type of situation? They wouldn't. And so, of course, she knows that. And that's utterly ridiculous. And this does show a certain degree of delusion and what she expects other people to believe. South Marjorie says they're so skilled, I tell you, it's unimaginable. So Anne says, I feel for her not being able to conceive, but I don't support her scamming people. Shaking my head, it's sad. And I mean, anyone, who is a mother, anyone who's ever wanted a child, would feel sympathetic towards someone who, is motherless and perhaps want a child. But there's certain things that you have to do. And including, honestly, making sure that you're financially capable of having a child. So listen, for some people, getting pregnant is the easiest thing in the world. Seriously, it doesn't take much. All it takes is a John or a Dick or a Harry or whatever we're going to call him. And next thing you know, poof, you're pregnant. But it takes more than that if you want to give this child a better life. So if you want to give a child a better life, it shouldn't just be, oh, I'm going to take a child out of a dumpster and give the child a better life, because the dumpster that's nothing to compare it to. But it should also be, I want to give the child a better life than even what I had. Because most of us grew up in less than ideal conditions, not just financially, but sometimes emotionally, family support, dysfunctional families, all of that stuff. So our aim should always be for every single generation to get better and better and better, right? And if we're not doing that, if we're not improving ourselves, how can we talk about trying to give a child a better life? You don't even have a job, madam, with all due respect. You think it's a better life going out there begging people for stuff for yourself and a child? How is that going to be a better life? You're going to raise a child for the next 18 years, and the plan is to beg for them every single month? Beg for school fees. Well, I guess they'll go to government school. Beg for exam fees. Beg for school uniforms. How is that a better life? Because at some point, other people are going to be like, listen, lady, you're always begging and we don't have it. Those of us who get up every single day and work, we have to try to say, all right, I need to budget myself. I'm only making $2,000 a month. Got a mortgage that's $1,000. Got CUC that's another $1,000. You're already in the hole. Everyone is trying to figure out how to stay afloat, how to pay their bills, how to help themselves first and foremost. But when you extend yourself and you try to help other people, that is not something you can do every single week or every single month. And there are people who that is what they do. Every month they're coming, oh, I need money to buy, a new pair of shoes. And people are like, even working people like myself don't buy a new pair of shoes every single month. We can't afford to do that. And then these people sit down on their lazy asses, and I don't care what anybody wants to say, smoking pot, bringing people in this country who mean them no good, who become themselves a burden on the system, and scamming the people of the Cayman Islands. And like I said, scamming is like the new job. Some of your comments, let me see here. All right, so we're talking about some other things here, which we can get to for the remainder of the show. Good morning, Evelyn. Okay, so I think we're done with this conversation. There are a few other things that I wanted to talk about that we can now jump into. The next thing up on our list today, so all I can tell you about scammers is we will continue to do our part here on CMR. And I don't care who the scammer is, what they look like, whether they're Caymanian, male, female, it simply doesn't matter. Businesses, there's a lot of businesses out there scamming people. We've highlighted a few of those as they come to our attention. Just last week, we were being told about an AC business again that has been scamming people for years. And we're going to put that one together. That might be our next feature piece about how they consistently scam people. And we will certainly put that out there. So send us information. If you know about these scammers, give us information and we will do our best to get the information in the public domain so that people can be warned. As they say, forewarned is, what's the saying again? Forewarned is what is that saying? Help me out here, guys. What does it say about being forewarned? Anyway, in other words, once you're warned, you're put on notice, and then you can make better decisions from there. So over the weekend, there's a bit of a firestorm that kicked off over Facebook groups not being inclusive. And two of the groups that were actually highlighted include K-Moms and the Real Women of Cayman, more so K-Moms. So the K-Moms group had up their profile picture of a group of all Caucasian expat women. And the group is actually forewarned. Yes, forewarned is forearmed. Yes, thank you, Carol. So yes, this K-Moms group had up this very whitewashed picture, literally, and they claimed that this was all the founding members. And can I tell you that a firestorm erupted on social media? And there were people commenting all over the place about it, saying this was not inclusive. Why not, especially in a time like this, when we're having the dialogue, we're having the discussion because of what's happening in the US, for example, about race relations and racism, which we very much have here in the Cayman Islands, despite the fact that some people continue to want to pretend like we don't. We do have it. Why not have up a picture that is more inclusive? And so the comment of one of the administrators apparently is, oh, this is our original founding members, and so this picture is very near and dear to us, so we'll never change it, kind of thing. That was probably not the best response in the world. So at the end of the day, a lot of people started commenting about that, and a lot of people had feelings about that, and they were just like, listen, at the end of the day, you know, it's ridiculous to think that you can't be inclusive and that you shouldn't want to be inclusive. You know, it doesn't matter if this was the founding group or the founding photo or whatever that's near and dear to your heart. People are saying to you, it projects and gives a certain image of not being inclusive. You've moved to the Cayman Islands, with all due respect. And I don't care where you're originally from. If you're from the UK, Canada, US, whatever, you've moved to an island. And you know what you have in the Caribbean? You have people of color. You have Black Caribbean people. And so when you move to the Cayman Islands, you should want to embrace that culture. Our Caribbean roots are not as whitewashed as you'd like to think. So when the comment was made that, oh, this photo is too near and dear to our heart, and so therefore, we're not going to change it, a lot of people were just like, what is it that you're saying? And trust me, people took offense. Oh my God. The comments. One person posted yesterday, the recent K-Mom situation and the racial tensions in the US has me thinking of the racial divide in the Cayman Islands and potential solutions. Now, we had this conversation last week, folks, but a lot of people were not paying attention, or they were just not there yet. Sometimes it takes people a minute to mentally get there. So this person goes on to say, I know this won't be a popular post, but I can't keep my thoughts to myself. We have to be careful of what we're designing our country to be. We also cannot allow ourselves to be pushed out of areas where we want to be in our own country. My son goes to Cayman Prep, and we thought long and hard before we made that decision. I still think about it every day, and there may yet be moved because I'm proud of what we look like, and I want them to be surrounded by that. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. It is undoubtedly one of the best schools on the island, but as all of my Caymanian friends pointed out when I was debating, it is a white school. I know many Caymanians choose to not send their children there for that same reason. They're not wrong. The racial diversity is lacking at Cayman Prep. My children are in the minority at their school. In our own country, we are the minority in our South Sound neighborhood that we just moved to, in our own country. CIS just posted a picture of their graduating class. Once again, the lack of diversity is clear. I'm going to talk about CIS in a second. When I choose to apply for a job, I and many other Caymanians have to hesitate because we know it's probably earmarked for the boss's friend from back home. Why don't they have a Caymanian friend here who would be perfect for the job? And that's in quotes. Because they don't have any Caymanian friends or very few. Whose fault is that? Ours or theirs? We used to intermingle with newcomers, and 2 generations later, the children of these expats sounded more Caymanian than you or I. Now, I sit at Christmas concerts and hear British accents on the stage in my own country. This is not an anti-expat post. I think we have to welcome new people to our shores, but we have welcomed them and locked them out, which turned into locking ourselves in. This is too much separation and division. My first suggested solution is to open the schools to all who live here, whereby expats can access public schools and scholarships are offered for Caymanians to the private schools. There also has to be conscious acceptance of applications by the private schools. I see my people being passed by on the waiting list for prep and a random person who moved here last week getting into the schools. Such occurrences are suspect. I hear you, CIG. You don't have the space in the school system. My response is this: then don't grant the permit. Whoa. Decision making, then don't grant the permit. This is the same in the traffic situation. The infrastructure has to match the decision making. If the country cannot accommodate the people to accept them completely, then don't allow them in. I would love to find a way to help our country integrate more. We are presented a new opportunity via COVID-19 to review the way we do everything. Outside of the above, we have to be willing to build friendships and relationships with those not of our shores, and newcomers have to be willing as well. It was a public post, and I gotta tell you, very, very moving. It actually got almost 400 likes, loves, and hugs, and 179 comments. And I couldn't tell you, I agree with this sentiment 150%. It is a two-way street. And when I hear stories of children going to private schools, Caymanian children, where they are outwardly being discriminated against, even as this post alleges in the application process, how they're accepted into schools, I think that that is a sad indictment on us as a community. There's also active discrimination in the system. So even when they get into the schools, a lot of the kids have to deal with bullying and discrimination from their peers. And I'm sorry, but when you have a child in middle school, elementary school, or even high school that will make fun of Caymanians and make fun of people of color based on the fact that they are colored people, I cannot help but know and understand that that is coming from within your homes. There's no other way that those children are picking that up. If you live in a home that has no tolerance for those types of racist feelings, comments, remarks, your children would not be exhibiting that behavior so willingly in public. And if they did, because maybe they're being influenced by peer pressure or their friends, I would know that as a parent, if you do not share those sentiments, you would reel that situation in a hurry. There are stories at CIS and other schools of children, again, white children that are expat for the most part, coming here and taunting and making fun of our kids, regardless of their financial situation, because trust me, you can't just jump up and go to CIS without the financial means to do so. So they can afford to pay the most expensive tuition on the island, which is equivalent to sending your child to law school. You'd probably come out cheaper sending your child to law school here in the Cayman Islands when you look at the monthly fees. So it's not that parents can't afford it. They can afford to have their children in that environment, and still they are made fun of. There are children who will take a marker, a black marker, and mark their hands and said, oops, so-and-so just touched me. That's why my skin is now black. breaks my heart to hear of these stories. And I think, I have a daughter who's obviously Black, and she's going to one day go into one of these schools. And what is it that she will be subjected to? What are the schools doing to encourage diversity? And this is where I'm going to reach out to every single private school on this island and say, what are you doing? Are you even offering scholarships to underprivileged kids who cannot afford to go to your school simply to encourage diversity in your institutions? CIS, have you ever done that? Of the student population at CIS, what percentage are Caymanians? What percentage are Black Caymanians? And I agree with that poster that part of the issue is the segregation in the schools does not help. And that is a creation of the fact that government schools only have so much space and they are trapped for resources. Having said that, there has to be a better way forward. There has to be a better way of figuring this out. So allow private people to go to government schools, but maybe not necessarily for free. Implement some sort of fee structure. These are the things that we really need to think about, because if you have no diversity amongst the young, chances are their parents are not very diverse either. They're coming to our shores, and again, they're being hired by friends and family here in the Cayman Islands. And once they show up, they remain within those circles, for lack of a better word. And I've seen it all the time. They're not mingling with people of color, and they're certainly not mingling with Caymanians. When they have their weekend events, their weekend socials, they're going out for a drink, they're not going to invite the Caymanians in the workplace to the bar for a drink. We see it in all facets of our life. Local establishments like, say, for example, Mango Tree, the Station Bar, you go there and they are 99% locals and 99% Caymanians. Where is the expat population? I'm sure Mango Tree would welcome them just like anybody else. Your money is good and probably just as better because you got more of it. Thanks to that cushy job that your friend brought you here for. So there are ways that I think that we have to push ourselves to integrate more. The response by the Cayman Moms group this weekend was lacking. And there are other people who have accused as well the other group, which is the Real Women of Cayman, which I don't even know what that means, because again, most of those people in that group are not the Real Women of Cayman at all. They're the Real Women of other places that have come to the Cayman Islands. So it's interesting how they see themselves. But the Cayman Moms post has really taking off. A lot of people, let me just find another comment on that, really had a lot to say about the situation. In the end, change was swift. And as a result, the entire administrators of that group resigned and left the group. The same group that said, the same administrators that gave an excuse and basically said, oh, well, they weren't going to change it because this was representing who started the group, and that was more important to them. Listen to what they actually were saying to you folks. This nostalgia of having all of their expat friends in a single group photo and having that be the cover photo was more nostalgic to them and more valuable than even appearing to be inclusive and including other groups. So this Frankie Webb, I don't know who Frankie Webb is, actually made a comment that basically said that that was the reason why, the group picture was not going to change. He says, hey, y'all, I think Frankie might actually be a woman, I'm not sure. Hey, y'all, apparently there was some question of the group photo. Just so you all know, the photo is of the founder members. Founder members, I don't know if that's correct, but I guess founding members of the group, not really keen to change it. It's kind of sacred. And that was the explanation. So Natalie Bell says, thanks, Frankie Webb, for explaining your decision. I think it is lovely that you all started the group, but a shame that you're not willing to change the photo to be more welcoming to all mothers in the Cayman Islands. Surely you can keep what must be a very treasured photo for your own personal collection. And to me, this gives the message that not all mothers are welcome. And so on reflection, I will be leaving the group. So they started to have people to leave the group. They lost members. Luana says, Natalie Bell, I couldn't have said it any better myself. And they started to have a very swift mass exodus of the group. And I think the members then maybe had a rethink of their decision to remain as administrators of the group, and they were swiftly gone. And now we have a more diverse group of administrators, including a Caribbean woman of color, which again, I just find it shocking that you could have a K-Moms group and not a single person of color was in that group. I mean, how did they, I don't know how the family members came together, but no diversity at all. Here's a group photo. Not a single, and most of them just happen to be blonde-haired persons, which is kind of funny. All the cute, super cute kids, but no Caribbean people in this photo. Is this the direction that we really want the Cayman Islands to go to, where a group of almost 500 persons look like this with no real diversity? And there are people for quite some time who'd been commenting about this group, because I've seen some of the comments. And people are saying, you know, even the participation in the group and how they shut people down. Like if certain Caribbean persons have a contribution to make or something to say, they make it out to be like, oh, your comment isn't valuable. What you have to say doesn't matter. Quite shocking and unbelievable. And like I said, a lot of persons had something to say. Another person made this comment. They said, complimentary PSA for all moms in the K-Moms group who embrace diversity. Admin posts in response to questions about having a new photo that is representative of all K-Moms and said photo in question. And said photo in question. So grateful for these kinds of posts so I can stop wasting my time in groups that are not about inclusion in Cayman. So now the group has changed, and it has changed names. It is now called KY Mommies. And the photo at the top is certainly much more representative of what you would expect in the Cayman Islands, which is a variety of people of all skin colors, shades, and ethnic backgrounds. And so this is a new group, but of course you can see they lost almost 1,000 members. They went down from 4,756 to 4,682 members. A lot of people left the group. They were just like, this is not what I think the Cayman Islands should be about. And not only did people leave the group, but there's another group, a competing group, that was actually set up called K-Parents. And they wanted to be even more inclusive. And someone wanted to know, did the admins change? And so we were told yes, that the administrators have changed. And then Frankie ended it in the most amazing way, showing your real colors, so to speak. And this was Frankie's final. And I don't, like I said, I don't know who Frankie is. And I think she actually no longer even resides in the Cayman Islands, is what I was told. But this was her final departing post in the group. Frankie says, sad it had to end like this. Bye-bye, everyone. I enjoyed being part of the community until yesterday. and this was, I guess, on Sunday. And then they post another one. Hi, please comment to be the new admin so I can leave you all to it. Wishing you all well. Time to let go. Thanks very much. So, you know, there are times when having these discussions, folks, makes us uncomfortable. If you have not grown up in a very diverse environment yourselves, of course you're going to be uncomfortable. And you have to push yourselves. You have to push your outer limits. And so what does that mean? Maybe times you may be uncomfortable. You might feel a little bit of twinge getting to know Caribbean people who sometimes can be loud and they're into certain types of music that maybe you're not even into. But pushing the bounds of who we are and acceptance of others is something we should all try to do to just grow as individuals. I have had the pleasure of being exposed to a lot of different cultures. I mean, my university years, a lot of times I reflect on that at USF in Tampa. And I'm so grateful for the opportunities that I had to be involved in campus life and as a result to meet people from all walks of life. I was fortunate enough for a number of years to be a resident assistant. So in other words, I was responsible for other students on my dorm floor. And I just happened to be put on the international floor because I was an international student. And part of, although I'd lived in the States for, at that point, you know, over 10 years, part of the role that I had to play was trying to help the international students to integrate into the US and to figure things out and, you know, culturally what was going on. And so I remember, for example, there's a guy from the Middle East. Now, Middle Eastern men are very, very interesting. And he came there bearing gifts. Like he showed up, we had a phone conversation. The first time he called, I was actually in a private dorm. And the first time he called, he got me on the phone. I kind of just said, hey, you know, this is a weekend. So here's the basic information you need. You need to call back and speak to the leasing agent or whatever her position was at the time. And, you know, gave him information. But apparently I made such an impression on him. I don't know. He shows up bearing gifts. Like he brought me nuts and perfume, all kind of stuff. I was like, listen, I can't accept these gifts. That goes against our policy. And, you know, there's certain things that you also need to understand and comprehend about the culture here in the US. So even how you treat women, and we're not property here, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, we would have conversations, like he would tell us, funny enough, his father was a spiritual, like a minister in his culture. And sometimes he would like talk about that. And of course, you know, he had come to the US and his primary goal was to sow his royal oats. So he was like, I'm looking for the first woman that I can have a good time with. And it wasn't going to be me. I'm like, I'm kind of like your boss on this floor. So it's inappropriate on so many different levels. You got to go look at somebody else. Don't be talking to me, my friend. And so, you know, I got to know him and know a little bit about his culture. And do I like everything that I see about other people's cultures? Absolutely not. There are times when I look at people and I'm just like, wow, you guys are into that. That's what you do. Interesting. Not really for me, but do your thing, you know, as long as you're not hurting other people, you know, all in the name of diversity. I met a French guy who his name was Ludwig. I can't remember his last name, but he was an amazing artist. I mean, so amazing. He was actually doing, he's one of those people that I always wish I'd kept in touch with over the years, you know. He was actually doing like a lot of drawings and stuff, even for the president or whatever they call them of France at the time. He was doing stuff for them. I mean, really, really talented guy. And so he would be part of my group that I would go and play tennis with. So we had, you know, myself of Caribbean ethnicity. We had my boyfriend who was from Sri Lanka. We had, you know, Ludwig, who was French. And then we had some Asian persons in the group. I mean, it was very mixed floor. And that was most of the other floors were just like Americans from New Jersey, all hanging out and whatever. So I love the fact that I got to work on the international floor and I got to meet people from all over the world. Like, you know, there was a Malaysian girl who would cook some of her meals and share some of her cooking with me. And then she would tell me, you know, why they eat with their hands and why they use one hand over the other one, which I never really had thought about up until that point. and just certain things, that they do. And I always found learning about other cultures and other people to absolutely be fascinating. And I think that we need to have, Michael, um, this conversation about how we become more inclusive in the Cayman Islands. And if that means government, which by the way, government subsidizes public schools here in the Cayman Islands. I mean, sorry, private schools. They run public schools, but they subsidize private schools to make up for this, locking people out of the private school system. Use that subsidy to allow greater inclusion and to allow more people to, more Caymanians of all different types of backgrounds to be able to afford to go to those schools who may not ordinarily be able to do so. In the US, there are cultural exchange programs. So we would have people who would come, even when I was in high school, we'd have people who would come from overseas, from different countries all over the world as part of a cultural exchange program. And they would come into the US, come into your school system for 3 months, 6 months, whatever, for the academic school year. And they immerse themselves in the American culture and in the way of American life. And they're from all over the world. Programs like that encourage diversity. Why is it that the Cayman Islands has no program like that? Well, I think one of the reasons why is we already have so many people here. We're like, we don't really need more people coming in for cultural diversity, but maybe we need to be seeking to go elsewhere to learn about other cultures and to be more diverse ourselves. But this is the Cayman Islands at the end of the day. So we seek to be inclusive, but I think the people who are coming in this direction, they're the ones who need to be the most inclusive, because they're the ones who tend to lock us out of their social systems and their schools and whatever. South Marjorie says, if you want to hear real stories in Cayman about racism, speak with domestic helpers, nannies, you'll end up with endless tears. Sad but true. And now we have this sort of rhetoric where we think that the epitome of nannies is to get them from the Philippines or certain Asian cultures and countries. So, if you have certain financial standing in the Cayman Islands, you no longer want a Jamaican helper, Jamaican nanny. This goes for both Caymanians and expats. You think that you have to hire someone from the Philippines because somehow they're better nannies. And again, for Caribbean families, that has some serious implications in terms of your children it was one thing to say, okay, at least your children get to be around a Jamaican nanny, which isn't necessarily the Caymanian culture, but there's some similarities and it's a little bit closer. We have forged a bond between Jamaica and Cayman, even in terms of our families. So at least they're going to get Caribbean dishes. They're going to, learn a little bit about Caribbean music and whatever. When you bring someone, and I have Filipino friends, and this isn't anything about the Filipino community. My point is, when that becomes what is preferred and what people who have financial means desire, you are again removing the ability for Cayman to keep and maintain its Caribbean culture and its Caribbean way. So we want to be inclusive, but I think being inclusive also means that you have to embrace your own culture and embrace your own history and make sure that we understand and we know that as well. So Giovanni says the thing with the hand is true. I lived with an Indian in the UK and she taught me all of it. Yes, and I never knew that until university life. And I think for university, a lot of us are growing up in homes and situations where we're not exposed to a lot. And then when we go into university, you kind of dropped into that situation where hopefully you're in a very diverse college and university and you get to see what else is out there, what else is going on in the world. So Carol says, go to Hong Kong and the Middle East where helpers are treated terribly. In Hong Kong, they have to live in with the family and some sleep on the kitchen floor as there's no spare bedroom. Carol, just over the weekend, actually, I was reading about a young lady. I can't remember which specific country. I think it was somewhere in the Middle East, where she was actually only like 9 years old or whatever, and she was a domestic. And they killed her. That family killed her because she, oh gosh, I can't remember what she did. Oh, she like let the cats out or let the dogs out. Something happened with the animals. And they actually tortured this poor child to death. this domestic, and I don't know how you're a domestic helper at night, but this is slavery basically. And they actually tortured that poor child to death. I'm going to find the story and maybe we can discuss it tomorrow, but unbelievable. Folks, we're out of time. Natasha, good morning. I'm going to end today's show with, of course, our national song to kind of bring it full circle with where we started. Again, if you missed the beginning of the program, we were talking about Miss Leela, who wrote our national song. She would be the great grandmother of Lisa Arch, which is now Lisa Scott, and Miss Irma Arch. And of course, Miss Irma is the owner of Miracle Brokers, and she is one of our sponsors here in the program. So I want you guys to support Caymanian owned businesses. And we do have that video up on our YouTube channels in case you want to watch it. And of course, you can also go to the Facebook page that someone has created. So again, we support Miracle Brokers. For all of your shipping needs, please give them a call at 949-5989. They're involved in a lot of things, including logistics. There's more to shipping than people realize. And one of these days, we're going to have Miss Irma on the show to kind of explain what is it. You know, we hear Miracle Brokers. What does your company do? What are they involved in? But small packages, some small packages to shipping your vehicles and larger things, they are your go-to company for those sorts of things. So please support them. Support local companies wherever you can. So once again, lots of things happened over the weekend. Restaurants reopened. I heard a lot of them were not maintaining social distancing. So we're going to be certainly checking that out as well. That's not a good sign. So we'll continue to monitor that to see how that goes. Press briefings are going to be Tuesday. So tomorrow and Friday, that's a new schedule going forward. Tomorrow's show, please tune in. We're going to have Mr. Roy Bodden on the program, and Mr. Roy will be joining us and talking about Caymanian history and history, you know, to do with his family and stuff as well. So lots going on this week. On Wednesday, we will have Oliver Watler and Miss Kathy Frazier on talking about the history of the Caymanian people in genealogy and how we're connected and how we're related. So that will be a fascinating show. Like I said, we're still working on a guest from East End, hopefully for either Thursday or Friday. We're trying to work out the details of that. So I will leave you here now with our beautiful national song, which was just a collaboration was done with a lot of young local artists, all in the name of staying at home, COVID-19. And I think this is just so perfect to know that Miss Leela's song lives on in all of our hearts. And I think her national song is one of the most beautiful national songs in the entire world. And that's my opinion. Have a wonderful day, folks. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning at 7:15.